Finally, a Group 4 race where four-wheel drive is not unbeatable. In fact, it's at a major disadvantage because it's race C with tire wear. 10 laps of Grand Valley Highway 1 with ×4 tire wear on mediums and softs. Why is that? Because since the power is going to all four wheels, it puts more pressure on the front wheels to grip up to do what it has to in order to corner quickly. Therefore, a four-wheel drive wears out its tires noticeably quicker than an MR or FR. Speaking of MR, this is now the go-to drivetrain of the week, so let's get into it. With this in mind, you may be thinking, wait, it's an MR race, so it's just going to be a Citroen 1 make. What's so different about this from an Atenza 1 make? You wouldn't be wrong in asking this considering past daily races, but this week, other cars can actually compete with the Citroen very well. I used 4 cars on Monday, including the Citroen, and for this, we'll go by the cars used in chronological order. So here are my recommended cars for Grand Valley. To start off the day, I used the Honda NSX. This car is a very good time trial car for this combo. At night, I dipped into the 55 threes, which set me inside the top 40 at the time. So if you're looking to improve your qualifying time, give this car a go. However, the catch is, it can get a little bit wild on exits, so you need to be careful on throttle, especially during elevation changes. So it may be a risk to use in the race. I only did one race with it, but it was only 2:30 in the afternoon at the time, so the level of the lobby wasn't that high compared to some of the later races you'll see. The next car I used was the Porsche Cayman. In my opinion, this was the worst of the 4 cars I tried on Monday. It's extremely tail happy, lacks acceleration, and has poor gearing. So if the chicane was tricky in the NSX, it's very bad in the Cayman. It's already bad at the start of the race. It's almost at the rev limiter in first gear instantly, so you have no choice but to shift immediately and lose a bunch of time into turn 1. Watching it back, and from the chicane again, the Cayman has such bad gearing because the lower gear promotes wheel spin and sends the tail end around, whereas the higher gear is too slow to accelerate because there's no forced induction. It is literally only down to luck why I won both my races with this car. In the first race, Ghost was held up by this guy for several laps, and in the second race, he crashed on the penultimate lap, which put me into the lead. It's actually 3 recommended cars because the Cayman does not feel good whatsoever, at least for me. The third car I used was the Citroen. Well, what is there to say about the Citroen that hasn't already been demonstrated? Great cornering, great tire wear, great acceleration, and very stable. It's no surprise that it's one of the top dogs in Group 4. In the first race with the car, the Ferrari in front made a mistake heading onto the last lap, which allowed me to take second, which is where I would finish. And in the next race, I won. The final car I used was the McLaren 650S. When I was looking for another car to use, I knew it had to be an MR, but I also had to find something with enough power to not lose buckets of time on the straights. I had a look at the Renault Megane Trophy and the Alfa Romeo 4C, but they are severely lacking horsepower, and they are both below 300 under the BOP. Then I looked at the McLaren. It has 319 horsepower under the BOP and is over 100 pounds lighter than the Citroen, so I gave it a go. And it actually really surprised me. The biggest advantage it has is that it is very stable under throttle, so you can really hammer the throttle coming out of low-speed corners. It's also really decent in a straight line. In this race on this specific lap, the 650S was maintaining the gap on the Citroen behind despite it having the slipstream. So imagine what the 650S can do in the slipstream. Well, here it is. As you can see, it is gaining massively on the Citroen, whereas the Citroen couldn't even gain in the opposite situation. As the example, the 650S without slipstream was hitting 137 miles per hour at the start-finish line. The Citroen was hitting exactly the same speed with the slipstream. I won 2 races with it and managed to stick with the fight for the win to the end in second in the other race. So if you're looking for a good car in the race, give the 650S a try. Now, I want to talk about a big reason as to why the cars behave the way they do respectively. For ease of answering this, we will mainly be comparing the Porsche and the Citroen. And the reason is width and length. Here we have a side-by-side of both cars. Looking at the Porsche, it looks quite skinny. Then we look at the Citroen. As you can see, it looks a lot wider than the Porsche is. We also have an aerial shot to see the length of the two cars, and oh boy, the Citroen is a lengthy automobile. As a bonus, look at the amount of aerodynamic parts on the back of the Citroen. Now to the McLaren 650S. Again, the Porsche doesn't look as wide as the rival car, and from the aerial view, it actually does look close, but I think the McLaren has the edge on length. And the Honda NSX is a similar story. Wider than the McLaren for sure, so definitely more than the Porsche, but the length is tight-knit between the two cars. The reason why I bring this up is because smaller cars in width or height tend to be more difficult to drive over bumps and elevation changes. For example, here is the inside curve of Degner 1 at Suzuka with the Citroen. As you can see, it took the curb like it was part of the track itself. Now let's see how the Porsche does it. A clear second bounce is seen from using the curb in the first place. The point is, if the car is smaller and or shorter, like the Porsche Cayman, it may be a more difficult car to handle. Keep this in mind the next time you pick a car for your next daily race. So in conclusion, on the surface it looks like a Citroen 1 make, but in driving, a lot of cars are able to compete hard with the Citroen. The NSX is a quick car for time trial laps, and the 650S is a very reliable car for race trim. That's my game plan at least. Any other cars you've had or seen do well? Let me know in the comments, but until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you around.